Okay, so welcome to Pen and Ink. This is my most favorite, I guess, after pencil sketching. And I'm hoping that all of you also take to pen and ink as comfortably as I think everyone can. So, just a little bit of background about pen and ink. This used to be the tool for drawing for most artists in the past before pencils came about. Funnily enough, it's only when we do pen and ink we think about the history of pencils, which weren't around till almost the middle of the 17th century, 18th century, in fact, at least commercially available. So before that, the drawing tool used to be charcoal, just raw charcoal. And other than that, most illustrators used to use pen and ink. So just dip a pen in a sepia ink or a charcoal based ink and then make your drawings with that. So ink is one of the oldest mediums at all, like literally from cave paintings onwards. They have used ink in some form to make all those handprints. So you know that it lasts a lot. And it's actually such a modest medium and it does not get its due. I feel really sad about it. So this month I want to do this as an exercise in understanding what this medium is all about, everything it can do, and how it might have come about to be as I guess it's become redundant now because more because of digital drawing and things like that. So, in my opinion, with ink, you can achieve somewhere between what you can do with pencil and what you can do with watercolor. So, the ink is, of course, monochromatic, but you can get such depth and such dark lines that it elevates what you could have done with pencil. But it is still a little less, maybe because it does not have color, it creates a certain intensity that can be enjoyed only in monochrome. So we'll explore all these different themes through the month. But today I want to just introduce you to the different kinds of inks you can use and different tools that you may have. What I've shown you or asked you to get is just maybe 1 out of 10 things that you can use. You have a holder, a nib, and a waterproof ink. And you can start with this. But there are a lot of other things that you can also use, some more modest than what I have asked you to get, and some, of course, can be more expensive. So let me just introduce you to that. All right, so once a year when I have the pen and ink module, I like to pull out all my inks. And this is not all my inks, it's just a representation of all my inks. This is like the UN of the inks that I have. So this one, of course, is the one that we are going to use. Excellent ink for all sorts of illustration. So I'll speak about that when we are working with it. I use a lot of, so this is coffee. And it is in a jar which has walnut ink. I also use walnut ink, but these are inks that I've made myself. And this is, hopefully this will open. A couple of years ago, we'd gone to Kashmir, and from Srinagar, we bought a whole lot of walnut shells. And this is my homemade walnut ink. So it has a very light brown tone. I'm going to show some of this to you. So you can see how even these inks can be made very nicely. And then there is a commercially bought walnut ink also. Let me bring that. And then in my fountain pens, I use a Mont Blanc. So this one is, look at this bottle, it's so nice. So it sits like a horse on the table. And it is reasonably waterproof or water resistant, but some of the pigment often can trail into watercolor. But I have used this in my journals, and this is a nice thing to carry with my modest ink pen. Now the other tools to draw with. You can literally draw with anything that can hold the ink. It just, excuse me once. Right, so this is walnut ink as well, and I'm going to draw with this also and show you. So I often draw with even this. Now this is not a very sophisticated cane pen from some very nice Japanese store or anything. This in fact was part of a cane chair in our house on the terrace, which broke up and left behind some residue, and I thought, okay, let me just carve it and see what I can do with it. So anything that you can carve into a point, you can use for ink drawing. That's the best bit about ink drawing. So say you're out in the wilderness, you have made a bonfire the night before, and you have a little bit of charcoal, you have a few of these sticks, and you can start drawing on rocks. You don't need too many things. Of course, you have the pens. This is a tip pen which uses the Zebra G nib, the one that I've asked you to get. So we'll explore this. This is just a regular fountain pen. This is that click pen that I spoke to you about. Excellent. This one is for 500 bucks and it works really well. And there's another one that I'm going to show you sometime next week. And here's an interesting dip pen also. I'm sure you must have seen these.
The glass one, na?
Yeah. So this one is again a very lovely pen where the twirls on the tip help to keep the ink in place, and you can then draw lines pretty well. Now, unfortunately, my pen has lost its tip just a little bit, so it's no longer very soft and round. There's a hardness to my tip, so I don't get really smooth lines with it. I don't know what happened, but maybe it was just someplace where I tipped it too hard or something. So I'll show you how all of these work. Now, when I work with ink, please keep something on your table that can protect your table from ink. These inks are waterproof and sometimes they are also permanent. So if you don't have a mat like this, take maybe a sheet of paper, just put something below your work so that your desk is protected. The last thing you want is to have splattered ink. Of course, if you have a very lavish studio and you have space and all for that, go ahead, splatter looks very wonderful, but till that day, we would like to protect, at least don't have your family blame you for furniture problems. All right, so I'm going to be working on this, and I have another thing on the side on which I will keep all my inks and bring them out one by one to show you how they work. So I don't want to do all the chatting while y'all are just sitting around, because if you're anything like me, I'm sure you must be itching also to start. So we will start off, and as we go along, I'm going to show you the different inks, the way they work. There's no reason why you can't do these exercises with me. So now let's start with the Black Star ink. This comes in a bottle with a dropper. And the reason for that is you do not need too much of this ink to make a drawing. It's a little bit like our Sumi ink. You can keep diluting it and using it for a long time. Not as much as we do the Sumi ink, but it's still pretty good. So get your inkwell out, a small container in which you can take about one, how many ml would this be? I don't even know. So one capful, I think. Don't take more than one of these, what do we call them? Squeezes to start with. Eventually you will get that more. And if you have dropper. Just add enough water to bring it up to like a 50%. No, no, what am I saying? The same amount of water as you have put ink to start with. All these measurements can be adjusted once you start testing your pen. So let this sit for a bit, shut it. Do not allow this to dry. So when you're not using the pen, keep your lid on the inkwell always. It can stay up to 2-3 days under the lid, but if you keep it open and exposed within an hour, the ink will harden. Now for the nib, those of you who are using calligraphy pens will be familiar with this, but for the others, if you have a holder like this, the holder will have at least one ring in the center, and that ring, if you have the large ring, it will take in the zebra G nib in the outer circle. The inner circle is meant for another nib. I'm going to show you that as well. So traditionally, in India they used to use what's called a crow quill, which is a nib that's smaller than the zebra G nib. This is our zebra G, and this is the crow quill. And it is literally meant to imitate the quill of a crow. It's really thin. It's got a circular or cylindrical shaft, which for some reason is stuck. Okay, I can't remove this right now. So this is to give us the fine lines as much as the zebra G, but both of these can split and give us the fatter lines as well, and we are going to draw using both these qualities of the nib. So once you have inserted the nib into the holder, just press it gently to as far as it can go. If you're using this model, then the grip in the center is really good so that it doesn't tire your hand too much. When you're using something very thin, it can constrict too much and then your hand starts hurting a lot over time. Okay, let's begin. So to start with, ideally the amount of ink you should have in your inkwell should be enough to come up to the hole that you see, the center hole. Right now in my inkwell it's not coming up to that, but it's perfectly okay. It just means that I'm going to have to dip more. So since today is day one, I don't want you to waste too much ink, so we will just keep dipping more and more. When you are dipping though, don't go and touch the bottom. At least don't go too hard. Just gently go up to where you can feel the ink, drain, and then start drawing. So this, there are a few things about this pen that you should know. It works like any other pen if you are drawing regular lines. So let's try drawing a square or a rectangle. And in this now, we are going to draw two types of lines. You will draw one line that comes straight down, leave a little gap. So these are the thinnest lines you can make because you're not putting any pressure on the pen. This is a little bit like pencil yoga. You can call it pen yoga. And then I'm going to tip my ink a little bit so that I can fill in the reservoir if possible, because we're going to make certain fat lines. So now you will see that that oval in the center is filled up. You don't see that cavity anymore because I need this extra ink to make a line like this, which would be place the nib and then press it so that you get a nice big fat uniform line. And then as you come to the bottom, reduce pressure and you get this beautiful fat uniform thickness line. Okay, are you getting it? Now once you make the line, you can hold it against the light to see what kind of a black you get. We need a nice deep dark matte black. What you don't want is shiny. If it is shiny, that means it is very concentrated ink and you could do well to dilute it a little bit. If it is gray, that means it has too much water and you could add a little more ink. So can you see how dark this is looking? I'm moving the book around so that I can check if there's any shine from any angle against the light. Okay, now the other ways in which we can use the pressure stroke. You can make a dynamic stroke like this. You can start thin, then slowly add pressure, reduce pressure, add pressure. So this is like a dynamic pressure stroke. We are going to be using all of these. I just want you to see how you can make different types of lines. Then you have a line which you can start thick, and as you come down you can reduce it and do the other way around. So in all of these, the pressure strokes are dragging down. So yeah, in fact, we can have an interesting slogan also as a pun. Down with pressure. Now this thing has happened obviously because my nib ran out of ink. If I want to go over it again, fill this up, you can repeat the stroke by going a little behind where it stopped and make the same stroke again. It's that easy. You don't have to bother filling it up. So periodically this thing is going to happen. I have a little bit of paper fiber stuck to my tip. So keep a rag handy and keep wiping the nib so that you can get rid of the paper fiber. Even without that, after a few dips, it's a good idea and good practice to keep the nib clean. Since our ink is waterproof and it is evaporating as you are drawing, little by little it starts collecting on the nib and starts making the nib slightly thicker. So the fine lines that you get on the first draw start becoming ever so slightly thicker and thicker. So after every few, I guess maybe 2-3 minutes, just wipe this till you can see a little bit of the metal and then start drawing again. Okay, so let's try this practice now. I think I could do with a little more water. My ink is too thick, I feel. So remember how much ink I took. I'm now increasing the water by another 100%. So I have a 2:1 ratio of water to ink. It is still nice and dark. So whenever you want to make thick lines, you have to hold the pen at the angle at which you want the line to be. It has to be parallel. So if you want to make a thick line horizontally, you cannot make it holding the pen vertical to that line. So let's try making some horizontal lines. You can make the horizontal lines as hair lines using uh, holding the pen perpendicular to the line. You can also make them holding the pen parallel to the line. But if you want to make thick lines, you have to keep the line, it's literally coming behind the pen. If you put pressure over here, nothing's going to happen. It's like trying to do like two tongs over here. You're trying to drag them with pressure. Nothing's going to happen. They're just going to come one on top of the other. So in this exercise, you start noticing what is the threshold of one dip.
Didi ma'am, I've sent a picture. I have the camel waterproof ink to try,
Okay.
but I don't know if it's more water or.
Yes, this could be more water. It could be also a combination of water and paper. You're using the same book, no?
Yeah, same
Maths
book.
book, yeah. So you take some more ink.
Ink.
So your 50-50 did not work, right?
Yeah, I think I added more water.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's possible. This a lot of it is trial and error. Okay, now we are going to try doing some textures with ink. Is everybody getting sharp lines now other than Ritika? Yeah, okay.
See, with the dark ones, it's I think because the paper is like blotting. So that's the only one I'm having.
No, so if the paper is blotting, then add more ink.
I didn't add water also. I'm using the ink directly. I've got Holbein drawing ink that I'm using.
Hmm. And what paper is this? This is the our drawing book, right?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Did you shake the bottle?
I think so. Yeah. My
That's very strange because drawing inks work very well on this paper.
only the
Um,
ones, the light ones are fine. The light line.
no, we need to use a lot of pressure lines also.
Mm.
No, but it should not. Even if you don't use pressure lines, the pen or the ink should not blot on your paper. Let me think. Let me think. So, so it's full. Can I see which one it is?
Let me just take a picture.
Yeah.
Okay, I sent it.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Oh, no, no, no. And can you share the picture of the ink also? If the pen continues to blot, just switch to micron pens for the exercises. It doesn't matter right now because we need those sharp lines. So you'll at least get some of the exercise done. But with
That's
that,
also. Should I use that?
sorry?
For me, ink I have the brown one. Walnut ink it's called.
Yeah, you can use walnut ink. Try again, but I'm a little concerned whether the paper has become too humid. Too,
Oh, that
yeah,
could. This country is very humid.
I know. So either you'll have to iron the paper, but that's too much of an exercise to do it right now during class. Try with the walnut ink. Otherwise, just switch to micron pens for the exercises. Okay, so let's do some exercises in pen and ink. So here are a few very basic textures that you need to know in pen and ink. So the first exercise is just drawing lines. There are different kinds of lines you can draw. We are going to start off with drawing lines which are pretty close to each other, and these are hairlines. They're not very thick. With very basic pressure, we are just drawing equidistant lines. And we are trying to make them more or less equal. We don't want to keep them like in a disciplined line at the bottom because what we are creating is filler textures.
So the walnut ink is working much better, by the way.
Very great. All right. You can use that. So the next thing you do is make similar lines but slightly closer to each other right below this. Now you don't have to make them exactly below. See what's happening here? I'm making the same movement, making the lines denser. And then the last one, we can make them closer still. And you can do this in 2 batches. So unlike calligraphy, only for those of you who are doing calligraphy, here it is, what we are doing with the pen is technically just drawing. So we have to move our hand in a different manner altogether. It's like you've been handed this instead of a pencil, and now you have to do everything that a pencil does, but you don't have the liberty of shading and smudging and things like that, like in pencil, but you have to create the same effect. So what we're doing right now is playing with values. We are creating light and dark, and there are many ways in which we can do this. Try another one. Okay, this time round I'm going to try another drawing ink. Now this is the camel drawing ink. Hopefully this opens. Oh yeah. Sometimes these lids, if they're not used for a long time, shut as if there's no tomorrow. Even an apocalypse will not open them. And that's, again, that has to do with the fact that these inks are dry very quickly and dry permanent.
Like if we are left with some ink, should we keep it in the ink well or we have to give it back to the, but no, it's diluted, so we cannot give it back.
Yes? No, I put it back. I put it back in this after.
Okay, give it back.
But you guys don't need to do it right now. I'm just demonstrating how other inks work. So this ink I have tried to revive. It had become really hard. So there's a big blob in the center of the bottle. I can feel it when I go in. So this is still, it's already diluted. I won't dilute it any further. So the next exercise is to change angles. So here's what we can do. Draw slightly longer lines. So this one is blotting for sure. That's why when people have asked if is there a cheaper ink that you should get, I have used these inks and they're not as satisfactory, literally not as satisfactory as the Black Star. I don't know if you can notice, there's a little bit of blur in the camel ink, and it could be because I'm using one which has dried and been rehydrated. Okay, now we will make lines at an angle. So about a 45-degree angle is fine. The next row of lines.
The first one we used was Dr. Martin, na?
Yes. So I'm filling up the rest of the box with diagonal lines in one direction, and then I'm going to fill it up with diagonal lines in the opposite direction. Okay, next one I'm going to use is walnut ink. And ideally, even this should be in a container of its own. I might have a container, but for our purpose right now, I'm just going to use it the way it is. And I could use a crow quill to demonstrate because this is pretty clean. If it works, yeah. Many years ago in the art colleges in Pune, they would teach drawing with a crow quill. So I would go to their stores to pick up a crow quill. And then when I started teaching, I wanted some for myself, and they said that the art colleges have stopped teaching drawing with crow quill. I don't know how far that is true, or the students just didn't buy the material from that store anymore. I have no idea, but it was so disappointing. All right, now for the next one, you can make a. It's a very interesting exercise. I like it. It's very therapeutic. Make squiggles, and somewhere in these squiggles, as you're coming down, you can add pressure, reduce pressure. You can keep changing the design. Some places where you had pressure before, you can reduce it. So it's going to look a little bit like a tree bark or a wooden texture. Now, when you're doing this, remember that your nib has to always, the reservoir of the nib always must point up. If you're drawing in any other direction, that is going to be damaging the nib. So this is how we hold the nib, not sideways, not upside down. There's only one way to draw or write with a dipped nib, and that is by keeping the reservoir, which is this hole in the center, pointing upwards, directly upwards. So whatever your hold is, even if it is like this, the reservoir has to be up. You can't tilt it. I didn't realize it, but many people nowadays who have not used fountain pens are a little illiterate about how these things work. So I've had students in the past who have rolled their nib around and decided they wanted to draw it like this, thinking, they're not wrong in thinking that the hollow of the pen is going to serve as the container for the ink, and then we have to literally pour it out in a line. It's an innocent mistake. I don't blame them for it. Now, when you're drawing this, you'll also notice that it's easier to draw a line downward than go upward like that. You'll practically get no ink coming out. So unlike pencil, where we make strokes that go up sometimes, very rarely, but we do, the nib has directionality. There is only one direction in which it works, and then you can change the direction of the pen for that to work for you in other directions based on your illustration. So at best, you can draw a line at perpendiculars but never upside down. So trying to draw a line like this is actually going to damage your pen. So you can draw a line like this, you can draw it sideways, and that's about it. But don't go completely in the opposite direction. Alright, so now with this is walnut ink, so I'm creating waves with walnut.
Aditi, I have walnut in powder. How do I make it liquid? Like what proportion? How do I go about that?
I have even I have powder from like a decade ago. I've never used it. I I suppose you can, so in a bottle about this size you get so much powder. So I'm thinking there will be a proportion like 1:10 or something for that. But maybe test it out. Get a
Okay.
few granules out and test out how many drops of water those grams of ink need.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay, now I'm switching to here's a whole set of inks that you can also get. These are fun to paint with too. So this is again Camlin colored inks, and they have absolutely delightful bright colors. Like this is a deep green like this, and these blues. So they are so these are different inks though. These are not water. I mean they are waterproof, but they are more like drawing or painting inks. They're not necessarily to make the base drawing and then color over with, and they often work better on a special coated paper where you get a certain vibrancy. But they are good fun to work with because they repel water for the most part. So if you have painted something and you put a drop of this, it throws its tentacles out quite dramatically.
Is this photo ink, Aditi?
It could be, though it never doesn't say photo inks anywhere. It just says
Oh,
drawing inks, but it does work very much like photo inks.
okay.
So
Okay, now,
in
yeah,
market it says watercolor inks. Is that similar?
watercolor inks.
Let me see. I think so. It says water something. I'll take. It's like a big box, like how you just showed. I'll send the photo in a while.
It's, yeah, it's possible. Okay, now let me paint with the other tools. So the next texture we will make will be this can be stippling. I really like working with bamboo because it is such an organic feel. It is very light. It's not even as heavy as the. Uh, I mean, this is hardly heavy, but this is even lighter. So you can't even feel it in your hand. So the texture we're making right now is called stippling, which I've always maintained is what you give to an art student to punish them. But why? Not so that they are miserable, but the outcome is fantastic. Every punishment in life has to be to learn a lesson, right? You can't just punish somebody. That is cruelty otherwise. If they're not learning a lesson or they're not gaining something at the end of that punishment. This is brutally punishing because you have to make tiny, 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 tiny dots all over the place. But the end result for a medium like ink, which has only one dimension, you can create magic with this. So, first, you can just fill up the whole page with dots at a regular interval from each other. But don't go in a line, they have to be suitably random. You should be able to do this with the Zebra G also. And you'll end up getting very nice circular dots. I am getting slightly flattish dots just because of how the bamboo is cut. Okay, some tips when you're working with ink: never keep your pen dipped in an inkwell because that will rust the nib. So before I knew of No, not before I knew. So when I started drawing with ink, I just bought the material and decided I'm going to figure it out because hey, why not? And I didn't have a teacher or anything. So I used to literally, I used to have a bottle like that and I would keep my ink dipped, my nib dipped in that inkwell. And the next time I used it, sure enough, it wouldn't work. So I had the idea that that is how you do it from old movies in which they would show the pen dipped in a that you have an inkwell and there's a pen in it and people would write with it. Often that pen would be a quill,
Well,
and there's some quality in quills that they last better if you keep them in the ink, and that's where the design comes from. But metals don't work like that. So sadly, I lost a lot of really beautiful nibs in that process. Now if you have distributed your ink across the box very evenly, that's great. If not, you will start seeing that there are some dots more concentrated in a few places. So imagine that we have to create a circle in the center. You can create that literally dot by dot. Start from the corners, start from darkening the corners. You can make a sharp circle by, I'm going to try this in half the circle. I'm going to make something like a circle by drawing lines, dots next to each other to create a dotted line. And this can give me a sharp circle on the left hand side. So there aren't any lines, but I'm creating the illusion of a very sharp circle or a sharp edge of a circle. And I can do something similar on the other side, but a very fuzzy circle by increasing the number of dots on the presumed outside of the circle without giving it a sharp line. And then steadily keep increasing the dots. As they become denser and denser, you will have to consciously make a dot between other dots. So nowadays you get a pen which has multiple tips so that when you do, and also it's mechanical, so you can do like a brrrr and make like 1000 dots per second or something like that. So you don't have to do this takak 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 physically anymore. I was shocked and surprised and also felt quite nice that such a device was available, which means that when you see these huge paintings in stippling made by artists, you don't have to feel overwhelmed and you feel happy that they've not broken their back making just one painting. See? Okay, how's everyone doing? Okay, I'm going to share a few pictures which we are going to now try to draw. Okay, Shivani, I saw the ink. I've not seen that ink before, the bottle that you've shared a picture of.
Okay.
So try a different paper which is slightly coated, maybe. Maybe it'll work on that.
I use Sumi for now.
Yeah.
And then I have this, the one that I just sent to you. I have one which is like, it's called Linden Green, which is really nice. That
Oh,
one's starting. So maybe it might be because I bought it in this shop that was closing last year.
okay.
Maybe it's old, that's why, or whatever it is.
No, I doubt it. Because this is usually if it is sealed, it should work. This
I'll see.
stationery doesn't really go bad as such. All right. So now this is our drawing, which I'm pretty convinced is AI illustration. It's a very perfect. I can't tell now, so I don't bother. So this one we have to draw in a particular manner. We are not trying to recreate this picture, but I like its the contrast, the various lines that we have, the texture that it has. So we have to recreate this in spirit. And I'm going to show you how that is to be done. Because in pen and ink, your illustration can be very different. Not that it has to be, no, let me just qualify that with the drawing so you know what I'm talking about. So usually we draw all these things. We draw a circle, then we draw some proportion, some lines here and there. I want you to now try to figure out how to draw this without using those parameters. No circle, no, you still can, but don't use it in ink. So how do we do this? So we have to recreate, why I say recreate in spirit is because we are going to start drawing loosish lines like that and create textures very casually. You will mark areas which are which you see as petals. So like this is the central whatever thing it is called. Then from somewhere over here I have a wobbly line that makes up one petal, and at 3 o'clock it comes in. Okay, and then I'm going to draw these multiple lines. Now see how casually my lines are moving. They are not necessarily accurate lines, but what I'm not drawing is this, like I'm not drawing a zigzag thing. I will try to draw the line as I see it. And in fact, you can try drawing these lines very subconsciously while your eyes are on the subject all the time. Don't even look at your drawing. So pen and ink drawings can be very dramatic and very strong. So we cannot afford to make very wishy-washy lines. You cannot do a line like that, unless of course you're drawing an animal with fur. Then you can draw only that line. But I want you to start this month, I want you to start practicing making lines confident. They will work if you persist and complete the picture. Like at this point right now, this is not looking like a hibiscus too much. If I were to hide this, it just looks like a whole lot of lines radially drawn. But there are few things that will make it look instantly, it starts becoming a flower. And then we will use our shading technique to build shadows in. So can we come to this, and I'll show you how to create shadows now. Okay, if you're done, looking at the flower, you can start darkening the center. So identify where this anther or central stick thing comes, and then make lines which are directional, because that is where you will start seeing the shape. And at the center itself, it is really dark, so you can make it dark black. So very often these lines look like they've been made really fast, but they can be made slowly, thinking about the impact that your lines are making. Now here's a way that you can show shadows even in sections which don't have that much. Like over here at the tip, there are certain dark places. I'm just drawing parallel lines. So the distance between the parallel lines will indicate how dark the shadow is over there. Now while you're shading this also, another way is to add a dotted line. So you have a firm line that comes into a dotted line that looks like a light color, or the color is moving from dark to light. So this is a texture called engraving, and I can show you how that works. So if we have a circle, and we want to show that that it has a light, say a highlight and a medium, or whatever the usual coloring that we do for a sphere. So the first thing to do is I could just shade this in parallel lines like this, but I can also do something like this. Wherever you have a dark line, from there the line goes sorry, in that area the line is thick and parallel and constant, and in the medium section it becomes like a dotted line. And this is a technique that was used by actual engravers. If you pull out any currency note, you will notice that they create the sense of depth and darkness through lines, because all notes need to be engraved using plates, and those plates are then kept very safely, just to ensure that the design is absolutely accurate on all these currency notes. So I'm slowly rolling my line, making it rounder and rounder, and it is creating this sense of sphere or spherical object like illusion. So this is a slightly more advanced technique of using pen and ink, for which it helps to understand um, how dimension and 3D-ness works in objects. But you don't have to wait till you become an expert in that. Any place where you see a dark line transitioning into a light line, just make that line slowly disappear. from the dark to the light. Oh, now I'm getting a nice thick line in this because my ink has started settling in the bottom and I get this big fat blob because it was probably not sealed. I'll just use this blob in the darker areas to color it up. But you don't have to do that. It's best to just wipe this away. And the next time you go for a trip into the jungle somewhere, if you spot a porcupine quill, use that to stir your inks. I happen to have a few of those. And so for some weird reason, they don't seem to stain. I don't know why it is. This organic medium is amazing. So this is my porcupine quill. There, it just comes off. It cleans off of the surface so easily. Okay, at this point I'm going to add a little more water to my ink because I'm sitting under a fan and the ink obviously is evaporating. So test that your inks are not too dark also. Again, we don't want them too shiny as much as we don't want them too gray. And when you pull out your nib, you don't have a blob like that. Okay, how was the drawing experience, everyone?
Very nice.
It feels nice, no?
Then
So now I have also shared a picture of a bird. And we use the same technique to draw a bird. Now I'm not going to over instruct you about this bird, except to say try drawing this with absolute freedom. So that means, for me, it means something like this. I'm not really trying to get the bird accurate, but I want to make it characteristic. So I'm focusing more on very strong lines. There's a lot of texture in this. So we can build a texture using these lines. And the best way to do this very almost spontaneous illustration is keep your hand very light and just let the pen do most of the drawing and just allow your hand to drag the line. You will notice that there is, no matter what you do, how bad the line is, if it is strong, it tends to look compelling. So there's a hidden beauty in pen lines, and you feel so liberated suddenly after you draw with pen because really you have to try really hard for your illustration to not look compelling. That is different from look good. There is something about this line that no matter what you do, it draws your attention. the scribbles have some personality. There's just the contrast that you create can be so pretty, and the shapes, even if they are not accurate, they don't look as juvenile, one might say, as the same shapes might look in pencil, and definitely when we make it in color. Now, this is my experience from not just my work with ink, but also other earlier students with ink. I want you to test it out and tell me whether this is right in your cases as well, or it could be wrong. So I could limit that to saying in some cases the illustrations look very compelling. But I'm willing to bet that you will be suitably impressed with the outcome and surprised as well. Okay, how's it looking? Did any of you try to draw the bird or the flower with a pencil first?
No, I
Good.
didn't bird yet, but I'm still on the flower.
Okay.
No.
Okay, take your time.
Yeah. Flower.
1 second, let me pin it. Hmm. So, so I'll tell you what's happening now, Alka. You're drawing furry lines.
I'm drawing.
Furry lines.
Oh, okay.
So try to make your lines firm, like firm
Okay.
lines, not fur fur lines. They sound the same.
Okay.
Okay, so the difference, I'll tell you the difference between the two types of lines that you're drawing. Normally, if you are in the habit, when you're drawing with pencil, to draw broken lines,
Hmm.
and you repeat the same in pen, that becomes a very furry line.
Ah.
But if you draw one straight line, how does that look? And if you can see that there is a difference in the strength of the line.
Hmm.
It's almost as if you draw a broken line, it is fractured. So it's not going to be a strong line. And if you draw one line, it's like one cohesive line, nothing can penetrate that. That is the kind of nature of line you should try to draw with ink.
Okay.
So while with pencil, we can get away with broken lines because they're lighter.
Hmm.
But with pen, when you make broken lines, you're actually creating a texture. It's no longer just a line, it starts
Ah.
telling you something else. So potentially, your hibiscus could be made out of some kind of fuzzy, furry material when you draw broken lines.
Hmm.
So, in the, I guess what we have in this case is pen and ink has that gravitas. It's like an older gentleman or lady who will give you some information. You tend to believe it because you'll say, okay, they're older, they probably know better. They may not know better, but you just feel that they should be given that respect, and you listen to them and take their word. That is how pen and ink works because it has so much depth. A pencil line may be telling you the truth, but it's lighter, it's more fragile. So you can get away with being like a little less accurate with that. But with a pen, you can make anything believable. You know what I mean? So now when you're drawing the bird, don't doubt your line. Make it the way it is coming, but take a pause and see if that is making sense in the grand scheme of things. If you are not sure, make another line. Don't continue with the same line. Make another line elsewhere. Because with the support of the first line, you will be able to make the second line slightly better, more accurate. Then with the support of the second line, gauge whether the first line is accurate or not, or change that. And that's how you start to balance that in the absence of pencil.
I think I have the same struggle like Alka. Mine also looks, I have sent the picture, looks more like, I mean, in Punjabi they say I have done ghacha macha.
Yeah, it's a natural first step after pencil. Because I think so
The
far,
fun. I don't know.
mostly I think where you have used pen at all is after drawing in pencil and then making it firm in pen. So this with this medium, I think we're moving directly into pen, and that is, I think that's a new sensation altogether. So for the week, your homework is going to be drawing as many things as you can with your liquid pen. Now that we have it, we have to use it, otherwise it'll dry up and then you'll have wasted all that money. So normally how we do like a pencil yoga exercise, this will be even more exciting. So I don't doubt that all of you will be making these illustrations. Keep one page for one day. In this drawing book itself, you can do that. And you could in fact start off with just drawing your art tools. Like if I were to draw this. And unlike making a final picture, this is drawing. There is a difference in drawing and making a final painting, even in ink. So what you need to enjoy is the fun in the drawing. And maybe, just for fun, whatever object you're making, distort it. So I'm going to make a very, very distorted dropper. Deliberately making lines go wrong, maybe even wobbly. You could also draw cross sections. Draw a wobbly texture. And then make. No matter what you do, it will still look very fun. If you make the lines strong. Now let me try making a thing with a wobbly line. Let's do a left-handed illustration in my case. So not very strong hand. See, my fingers aren't even moving like that. Oh, I should start doing more pen and ink with my left hand. I'll learn very fast. So I hold my pen very lightly, let the pen do mostly whatever it wants to do, and then just direct it with almost like the crook of my thumb. Oh, I can't write. I was just writing the name of the brand now. I was going to write Black Sheep. They could call it Black Sheep actually. Why Black Star? And then very discreetly you can write the date. You can write it in the bottle itself also. And bus just a 5-minute thing every day. And fill the whole page up with different things that you can think of drawing every day in just 5 minutes. Okay, just keeping
Aditi, see now the bird. Is that better?
Yeah, one second. Okay, some lines are better, like really, literally some lines. So in your case, Alka, I think you're still scared of lines crossing each other.
No, it's more of lines not going where I want them to go.
So you're hesitating and drawing a line anyway, hoping that if it is not in the right place, at least it's not a big line. Is that right?
No, it like for example, can you see this box,
Uh-huh.
the top. Now it's a simple rectangle, okay, but
Yeah.
it won't come equal. It's come like a, like the horizontal line at the bottom.
Yeah.
So that's what. So that's why my problem is like I know what I want to draw, but it's not coming straight. So it's
Okay.
even as simple
So
as, so if I
yeah, so
want to make a
just
circle, I know it has to be a circle, but it will become an odd. It'll become either an oval or it'll become a misshapen circle, or like I just a simple thing as drawing a circle, just even one simple circle. So that is why I get very
okay, so I'll
difficult
tell
to
you,
do it with.
there are two solutions for this issue. I wouldn't call it a problem at all.
Uh,
But what I can suggest is uh, one is that although you know what you want in your head and you know you fear that this is going to happen, you can you should start drawing stuff in the air before contacting paper and draw much more.
hmm,
So if you are like a lot of times I do this, I will create that shape on in the air right on top of where I see it, and then I start seeing it.
hmm,
And then I know that some places I can draw a line really easily, and some places it's not going to come very easy to me. And then I'm a little more
hmm,
careful. And sometimes, because I'm a little more careful, it comes even worse.
hmm,
So that's going to happen. The second thing is that there is a place for the expectation to be met.
hmm,
That is in a very, very few places, like in the case of maybe drawing a rectangle, but definitely not the rectangle that we are drawing for this design. So you realize that when you say that this is what I want to happen, um, you then restrict how you are drawing it, you are probably setting yourself up for more failure opportunities.
hmm,
So definitely have an idea of what you want, but then build on what you get. So, for example, if you have, just to give you a wild example, if you have the rectangle that you've made,
hmm,
one line was wrong. You have to say, okay, now if we are drawing horizontal lines and this is the line that is, no, we're drawing vertical lines and this is the line that's upsetting me, um, I can turn my page around and make more lines in that direction so I can mask that line, or I can make more lines in the crooked direction. As long as I'm drawing it vertically, it doesn't matter how it looks on the paper. And then I can make my notes on
hmm,
or whatever. So that is one. Second is if you know that your horizontal lines are not good, next time don't bother with horizontal lines, turn your page around and make a vertical line. That's how you
hmm.
that's how you work with what you get. Now, if you're hesitating, your hesitant line is never going to look good. That is a guarantee.
Ah,
So you might as well just jump in whole and do whatever and then work with that. So add more lines, especially in ink, you can add more lines, but not a line next to it. So when you are making that illustration, you draw a whole line all over again. I'll show you what I mean. So say you're drawing the bird. I think you are drawing the bird maybe from tip of one line to tip of the other line. Most people would draw it like that. Is this something like you what you would draw?
no, I actually start with the head, but yeah.
No, no, not where,
Ah,
but the quality of line.
yeah, probably. Not so much no broken, but yeah.
Okay, so is it like this somehow?
Ah,
Okay, so in this, it what happens is every time you go back, now I'm experiencing this. Every time you go back, you lose sight of what is happening in the front. So while you think that I'll take the support of the line behind and make the next line and make the next line, you could easily be building your
hmm,
railroad track in the wrong direction. So sample this. Suppose you're drawing from the head. You draw this.
hmm,
Okay. Based on this line, you draw the beak. Then you realize that, wait a minute, this has become too far. I need to make it rounder. You make the next line rounder. Keep that line as a guide. Then suppose you make the bottom of the chain like this. I'm just exaggerating.
Hmm.
But knowing that this is going in the wrong direction, if you correct it, and then you make the whole bird, these lines just become like movement lines or something like that. You don't even see it. So if you have to correct a line, correct the whole thing.
Hmm.
And make these lines, each of these separate. So they don't need to hold hands um, to convey the design idea. Now this looks very casual and probably doesn't gel with your sensibilities. Even the legs, I saw you've drawn two lines like that, then there's a gap and there's something like this.
Hmm.
This means absolutely nothing. You don't know how they are connected. Better than that, even if you were to draw something like this, it's still slightly better than these gaps in between. The cavities draw more attention than you think they would.
Okay.
Okay, and then what you do spend your time on, and this you'll be good at, is using those small lines to make texture. The pen textures that you make are so delicate and so attractive that all the lines underneath those textures will be hidden and will only add to the depth. And you can try it with anything. I mean, I could do something like that also. But then when I start adding the features and focusing on what needs to be colored, all those lines disappear. Okay, so this goes for everyone. Uh, we are, at least for this week, don't focus so much on getting accuracy. Just on a strong line, always just a strong line. Uh,
Okay.
I suppose in terms of music, it would be don't worry if you're hitting the right note or not, just make sure that your voice is strong. That's all we need right now. Eventually, you'll hit the note. Okay? All right, and please share all your pictures on the group and also put it on Art from Home and add to the FOMO